Let's go. Game time. The standard is the standard. That's our motto. That's our creed.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Better Baby Daddy podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, John Latchman,
And I am your other co-host, Kelly Burgess.
and we are sitting down today with Dr. Court, who is a author and the founder of Ever Press. Is that correct?
Ever After Press, yeah.
Ever After Press. I'm sorry about that. Today, we're going to be discussing all things co-parenting, all things parenting in general. And we can't wait to dive into some of those topics with you, Dr. Court. Dr. Court, I want to give you the floor right here just to explain a little bit of your story and how you ended up where you are right now in life.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having me, by the way. So my story, I could take up an entire day giving you the whole thing. So the condensed version is I went through a divorce about a decade ago. And my divorce, by all means and purposes, I found out later was pretty benign. Shared 50-50 custody. We have the entire time. We don't get along, but we do try our best to co-parent. Went back out into the dating scene. I met my now husband, and he was going through a custody battle. And that is where I started to learn of all things family court, custody schedules, false allegations, whole nine yards. It was a world I didn't know existed, and I am not afraid to admit I was very, very naive about all of it. Our world was turned upside down for about 8 years. My husband's custody battle ended with him being in jail for 30 days for false allegations. When I say I barely survived any of that, I am not being dramatic. There were days I didn't know how I was going to get out of bed. My son is the legitimate only reason I did, but there were days that it wasn't pretty. I went through therapy and shamans and Reiki therapy and journaling and meditation and all of the things, and just nothing was bringing me back to who I was. So I ended up, everybody kept saying you should write a book. I've written my entire life, either in journals or letters to people, and people kept saying your story, you should write a book. So I finally did. It was published in 2025, January of 2025. It is the story of my childhood, my divorce, my husband's custody battle, and just how I found forgiveness and healing in order to get my life back. And when I tell you the only thing that saved me was writing that book, again, not being dramatic, it was the only thing that saved me. And in my publishing journey, I realized that there's a big hole in publishing, in writing itself. A lot of publishers are just keep writing, just keep getting the book, get the manuscript out, let's get the edits done. They don't look at the nervous system first. And when you're writing memoirs, transformational stories, things like that, a lot of people think they have writer's block. They don't. They have their nervous system is blocking them. Because when you're writing about all of those things that you've lived through, whatever traumas or triggers they may be, your nervous system is trying to protect you. And we really don't have anywhere we can go and work through that and write. So since writing saved me, I decided to create Ever After Press to hopefully help save others that come behind me in this war.
Wow. You said a lot right there, and there's a lot that I think Kelly and I want to really dive into, but I want to start with you being that almost, and I know you were directly involved, obviously, because that's your current husband. At the time when he was going through his custody battle, were you two married?
Not at the beginning of it, no. We were dating. And this is always the fun part where, if you know, the stepmom world, we're always the new supply or the other woman. So I always tell myself we were coworkers. We had been coworkers for a number of years, but that was all there was to it. Lots of people in our tiny town don't think so, but that was the case. But we were dating on and off, and to be honest, you'll probably ask the question most people do. Since you were just dating and the custody battle was warming up, why did you stick around? But I saw it for what it was. I was involved in some of the parts and pieces that ended up being the false allegations. And I couldn't just walk away. Knowing what I knew, I couldn't just do that. So we ended up getting married in the process, while the custody was happening. Actually, as a matter of fact, when we first got married, his attorney told him, if you want any of her testimony to count, she can't be your girlfriend. You guys need to get married. It was like, oh, every little girl's dream. I got engaged in a lawyer's office. So
Right. Well, you had a really interesting point of view. Most of the people we talked to, and ourselves included, were the individuals directly involved in that custody. You had almost a
Yes.
third person viewpoint, even though
Yes.
you experienced a lot of the emotions. So I'm interested in, and you're also bringing your son into that.
Yeah.
So what was that vantage point like, seeing that almost from outside the circle and looking in and going, oh my goodness?
I've likened it to this before, and it sounds like a joke, but it's like walking on a tightrope that's on fire with sharks underneath of you. That was my vantage point. That's what it felt like on a daily basis. Having that third person point of view, I will tell you, I will never take away what you guys who are in the hot seat actually go through. My emotions, however big and tough and hard to work through, are nothing compared to what you guys go through, being the ones that are, in front of the firing squad. Um, but having been through my own divorce and knowing how much anger, how much hatred, how much grief, how much shame was there, but knowing we could still figure out how to not slam each other in court, to then turn around and see this happening was like mind-boggling to me. I still to this day have not been able to either, after all the research, writing a book, helping other people write books, have never gotten to the root of how anyone can do this. I don't understand how you can put someone, especially your kids, through something like this.
Mm,
Um my son, it's funny that you ask that. I actually had a conversation with him just the other day. He's 13 now. 14 if you ask him, because he'll be 14 next month.
Of course. Claim
He's
that year.
rushing that time. Gotta get in there. I told him, I said, you're gonna turn 14 and then tell everybody you're 16. But we were talking about something, and I made the comment to him, and I didn't make this up. I heard it on social media, but it was, your storm shouldn't get your kids wet.
mhm,
And, he kind of looked at me and he was like, what? And so I told him, I said, well, Blake, I said, on your seventh birthday, I was like, I had to drive your stepdad to the police department that night. And he
mm,
was like, what? And of course, he knows about all of it now, because when my husband went to jail for 30 days, I had to tell him. I couldn't just tell him his stepdad's not here. Like, you can't talk to him, you can't see him, you can't FaceTime him. I couldn't do that to him. So he knows about it now. But when he was, he had no idea that that's what happened that night. And I told him, I said, that was purposeful, that you had no idea. You have no idea anything that we've been through. And there's a reason for that. You shouldn't,
mhm,
because this was my choice to get involved in this. This was my choice to get married. You didn't ask for any of this, and I'm not going to let it impact you. So,
mhm.
probably some of the not being able to work through the emotions the way I needed to is because I was really busy trying to protect him from all of the fallout and not make him collateral damage on top of it.
Yeah. Hey, kudos to you on that. What you just said reminds me of a previous guest we had who said something to the effect, he was a dad who had lost, it was a different situation, lost his wife when the child was really young. And he said he was so consumed with protecting his kids that he wasn't able to do the inner work he needed to do. And then it started coming out later, but he was just hyper focused on making sure that his kid didn't get rained on, as you put it. So, just your explanation of you're newly married, you have this new son, you're blending into an existing family, you got a co-parent in your universe too, and then you have this contentious thing that your new man is going through. How were you able to separate the different roles you had all at one time that were new, and channel out the energy, disperse the energy where you needed to, and keep your sanity? How were you able to do that?
That is bold of you to assume I kept my sanity.
No, you're here,
Um,
so, something
Yeah.
I
works.
am. I am. I am. Honestly, not gracefully is the best answer I can give you. Looking back on it, I realize how many plates I was letting fall and how many things I wasn't getting done to the best of my ability, and things like that. And it's probably akin a little to the gentleman you were just speaking to, that I was so focused on protecting my son and being a good stepmom and being a good new wife and grieving a life that I had just lost, and that it was about 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I was diagnosed with several different autoimmune issues and things like that manifested because of those years of fight or flight. So, in the moment, I think I balanced it okay. I don't think the kids noticed some things. I maintained, a job and all the things, but very, very ungracefully, which is where doing that nervous system approach, really finding an outlet for oneself, even if it's not writing, just something that you can do is really, really important to start from day one, not 2 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in, because then in some level, some of the damage is already done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So, as much as you want to share, how were when things were really acute with your current husband's custody situation, so much so that there's some allegations, he has to go in jail, and one day is too long when you're a parent, in jail. So 30 days, a month, like you said, you can't explain that, your stepdad's on a ski trip and he'll be back when he's come back. So how did you handle the other parent? Yeah, assume there's a mom there, right, of his kids, and then your ex-husband with that thing going on.
Very, very carefully. Um, my ex-husband actually knew about all of the allegations from day one. So even when my current husband and I were dating, the allegations surfaced then. It was very much a if you do this, I'm gonna say this happened type of situation. And so he knew about it from day one. I was very upfront. I shared text messages, I shared Facebook posts, I let him know here's what's up. The reason I did that is because we were from a very, very small town. He was going to hear about it anyways. So
Mhm.
I wanted to get ahead of it as much as I possibly could. Um, so I can't say I didn't hear some pot shots taken at me over it over the years, but for the most part, when I said, hey, this is what it came down to, he's going to be gone, I just basically got an okay. So it was fairly benign on that
As
side.
Yeah,
Really
as
Mm.
as good as you could
didn't
hope.
fight it, didn't have a lot to say. Yes, yes, and I think it was because I was so proactive in saying, "Here's the proof I have, I want you to see it from day one," rather than trying to react when he found out about it. So, that was helpful. As far as the other co-parent on the other side, um, I didn't see my stepchildren for 30 days. She wouldn't allow them to come over. I lie, I take that back. I saw them once because they went to their grandparents, and I went over there to see them, but that didn't go over well, so I just stayed away for the 30 days just to make it easier for them. They were dealing with enough knowing what was going on than to have to navigate seeing me on top of it, so I just told them, we're gonna celebrate when your dad's home. I'll see you guys then. I'll give you all the extra hugs then, and I they've told me since that they were very appreciative that I did that for them, that I didn't push anything further on them because I think they were already traumatized enough.
Mhm. Well, I want to talk about your stepchildren specifically because experiencing a situation like their dad being placed in jail for 30 days, and obviously, if something like that is occurring, there's a lot of things that are occurring around that as well that are leading up to a situation like that, like being placed in jail. So, have you noticed certain negative after effects of transversing that 10-year custody battle with your stepchildren?
Yes, yes. They both have experienced similar health manifestations from the stress, the trauma of all of it. They've expressed some ways and how they feel. Um, in in the book I wrote, I have a chapter about them. It's very short, and it is specifically said that this is short because this is their story to tell if they ever choose to tell it. But
Mhm.
but yes, I mean they are the reason that I say and again, I didn't come up with this, people online came up with it, but it resonates so heavily with me with love your kids more than you hate your ex.
Mm,
Mhm.
I don't care what the adult situations are adult situations. If you hate each other, hate each other. If you want to smear campaign each other, smear campaign. Don't do false allegations because that's just dirty. But if you want to do that type of stuff, call them names on Facebook and Instagram and all the grams. Go ahead. But to make your children collateral damage, I don't know how anyone can possibly do that because the ramifications that it has, the long-term impacts and effects that it has on them health-wise, relationship-wise, how they're going to grow up and think about and view things. So yes, we've seen it's getting better, but we have seen some definitely negative long-term impacts.
Quick follow up on that. What have you and your current husband done? And what are you currently doing in an attempt to mitigate those negative impacts? So like is there therapy, is there counseling, or is there something completely different that you guys are working on?
Truth telling, and that is an unpopular opinion
Mm.
in some circles. Um, I always label it age appropriate, please. Only tell truth that's age appropriate. But
Mhm.
when they're coming to you asking you dead on, what's
Mhm.
happening? What happened? What does this mean? Tell them the truth. And when I say
Mhm.
tell them the truth, I don't mean crap talk, get down in the gutter. I don't mean any of that. Get your feelings out of it. So it's
Mhm.
so funny. We have multiple binders and multiple poster boards that we had made for court. And in one of the first drafts of the binder, we turned it in to the attorney. I am type A. I had it like alphabetized. It had an index, like whole 9 yards. But I had sticky notes in it. And he went through it and he was like, take these out because the sticky notes were my opinion. They were
Mm.
a backstory of what was going on. And he was like, no, facts and only facts. That's it. So I kind of liken it to that. When you sit down to talk to the kids, when they're asking you these pointed questions, take the sticky notes off of it. No opinions, just straight facts. And the oldest has actually told me that she was very appreciative that we did that because she knew there were lies and she wanted to at least have one household she could trust.
Mm.
Yep.
That's
Wow.
powerful. Yeah.
So
And
we're not gonna sugarcoat it. And I have a place in my book that says it, and I'll say it to anybody. If you don't want me to talk badly about you, act accordingly. I'm sorry. Like, if I have to tell the truth about you and it makes you look bad, maybe you should have thought about that before you started acting.
hey,
Sorry.
you thought about the truth you want to put out there that's going to be told. Hey,
I like that.
mm,
Exactly.
there it is. So did you and your current husband just evolve to that place, or did you
Mm.
say, hey, if I'm ever in that situation where, oh, I learned this with my own personal situation with my child and co-parent, if I'm ever in that situation again, this is how we're going to handle it. How did you get to that place? And then the second part of that is what resistance, because I assume you talk to a lot of women who've gone through similar situations, or maybe, moms and dads who've gone through it, where there's some resistance to doing that, to the truth telling. What is some of that resistance you find? And then how did you get to the place where you said, this is how we're going to handle it as a family?
Trial by fire is how we came to the decision. It was more or less the moment of truth. It was pointed, asked, we had to answer. Like there was no brushing it under the rug and, oh, I'm sorry that happened. It was a pointed question of, did this happen? Oh, okay. This has to be a yes or a no. All right then. And we kind of just both looked at each other and it was really and truthfully, if I'm being honest, we both saw each other kind of go, all right,
Mm.
let's do this.
Here we go.
And so we did. And then it was because it was so well received, so much better than the constant, oh, well, we'll talk about it when you're older, or, no, that didn't happen. Because then you just wind up, you've got one household lying, and then you have another household gaslighting you. What? That's not going to do any good to the child. So, we didn't share everything. We shared what was appropriate up into a point, and then it was the response that we got back that was like, okay, we made the right decision. And then that's what we put in
Mhm.
place with the next one. And then with the next one, age accordingly as questions started coming up. And so, it's helped in the trust level and this being kind of a consistent environment for them. That's what's really showed us like, well, okay, this was the right way to handle it. So it was more of statistical evidence that we decided that it worked out in our favor. Thank goodness. And yes, I have heard from women I've worked with in networking circles, comment sections that that's not the right way to handle it. You should never tell them anything that's going on and things like that is really the resistance that we get is they kind of take that adult issues are for adults only and they twist it a little bit with the,
Mhm.
well, you should never tell them about it. Kids are a lot more receptive than we think they are. we think they're just staring at their phones or staring at their friends or staring at their games or whatever, and they're not really picking up what's going on, but they are. They're hearing it, they're seeing it, they can tell when we're upset, they can tell when things are not quite right in their world. And if they ask questions and they're shut down when they ask questions, they're going to feel like their environment is not safe. They can't even trust their home, who's in their home. Where else are they supposed to go and get trust? They'll go start looking for it in places that they are not going to find it if they can't even get it at home. So it's kind of that like risk versus benefit that you have to look at based on what you're talking about.
I like how you waited for the question. Like you knew that the time was ready for them to hear it when they're coming to you with questions. I remember a couple of times with my second son where he's always been very direct, but he was super direct this one time about my handling of some things when I was married to his mom. I'll just put it that way. And he was like, "Dad, did you
That's
do this?"
fair.
I was like, "Yeah," I said, "That was me, that used to be me, but yeah, I did that." So, when they ask, you figured that they're ready. What resistance do you hear? Like okay, you kind of spoke to that. Like people feel like don't tell them, or that's adult stuff, or let them find out on their own. And I have heard, hey, if a child asks you something about the other parent, it's the child's truth to find out. Like it's not your job to just make that other parent look bad. And it's a tough line, right? Between, hey, I'm just going to give it to you straight, and
It
hey, you'll
is.
discover that on your own. Um,
And that's where
so
you have to take sticky notes off of it. You got to take your opinion out
Yeah,
of it. Like
very.
just don't go into it with, well, let me tell you what your dad did or let me tell you what your mama did. It's not that. It's whatever question they ask, try to just answer and stick to just the facts. And if it's not relevant, if they're asking something that is not relevant at all, then you can probably go with a very generic answer of, I'm sorry that happened in that household. Tell me more about how you feel. You can kind of, skirt around it that way. But in certain situations, especially in high conflict situations, there's no skirting around it. They've already seen it. They've heard it. They've heard it from the other house, and they're coming to you to see who's going to tell them the truth. So, yes, it's their truth to find out, but how are they going to find it out if you don't tell them?
right. So did you take the lead with your child with the truth telling, and then your husband took the lead with his biological kids? Like, how did you manage that?
Well, and if you ever have any kind of conversation with any of these kids, they're going to tell you they hate our family meetings because we have family meetings.
You must be doing it right
Anytime
then.
With
Yeah,
agendas,
they're like, "Oh my god."
left
Yeah, they're
deltas.
like, "Another one." Yes. They
Oh, mom,
don't get me
that
started,
item
would
again.
not be surprised by an agenda. They would not be surprised. Like, that is my jam. Like, when we moved into our house, I had a PowerPoint slide to show people where to put the different boxes. So totally would be I actually might tell them that you guys suggested an agenda at the next one. So
That's funny.
yeah, but we have them, and it's a way to give everybody an open floor to say, like, here's what's going on, here's how we feel, how do y'all feel? And
Mm,
everybody can hear it together. The step siblings, the stepmom, the stepdad, the mom, the dad. We can all hear the different things. So really, when the questions first started coming, we had a family meeting sans my child. He was too young at the time and did not need to be there. Um, and my husband took the lead. And if there was any questions that I could fill in the gap or that was asked directly of me, I answered. Otherwise, I was just kind of there to emotionally support if needed and to show a united front. And then the same thing happened as my son has gotten older and started asking questions as well. So, and then we tell them if there's ever a time that you want to talk to one of us without the other one because you feel more comfortable, please say so. And we will, we'll go just to be able to give them that boundary.
Hey, that's strong.
it's
That's
amazing.
we talk a lot about in our podcast about just the need to when there's a split or it's fresh or you're in it. The important piece is that you got to be an emotionally regulated adult. And every time you enter
Yes.
another player onto the stage, an ex, a new dating partner, a new child, it just complicates it. But the more regulated you can be, the easier it is for everybody. It's never going to be simple, but it could be easier for everybody the more regulated we are as adults. So, hey, sounds like
Well,
you
and I
guys are.
can't promise you I've always been regulated in every
Well,
situation. I have not
hey,
at all.
who has, right?
Right, right.
Who has?
I have
And
gone in the
we have,
gutter a couple of
yeah,
times.
yeah. But hey, it makes the story interesting when you're
Yeah.
there.
I think
It
one of the
does.
most interesting powerful parts of having those authentic and truthful conversations with your children. If you do them right, it sets this amazing example of how they can live their life moving forward.
Yes.
You know, it's them, if they're seeing you, like you wrote in some of the notes, finding your voice. So now they have this example of, oh, I can speak up. I can be
Yes.
powerful. I can voice my opinion and I can do it in a positive way. So I can have disagreements with people, but I can talk. I don't have to yell. I can do all these things in a positive way. And what I want to ask you particularly is, you talked a little bit about in the notes that, you originally, you early part of your life, you didn't have a voice or you pushed it down. What enabled you to find your voice?
My son. 100%. So I was one of those kids that my parents stayed together for the kids, but never asked the kids what they wanted, because I would have preferred my parents get a divorce. And I've had a lot of people be like, "Oh, what?" Yeah, they would have been much happier people had they have left each other because they were toxic together. Um, but they fought constantly. The mode of communication in my household was yelling all the time, yelling, and some sort of a manila envelope that supposedly had divorce papers in it. I don't know if it did or not. It was always handed back and forth between the two of them as if it did. So I don't know. My mom passed away last year and my dad has dementia, so I can't ask anybody, but I really would like to know if it did. I'm kind of wondering if I like go clean out their house, if I'm going to find it one day and it'll be, like the lost treasure. But that was how I grew up. And so when I left my home, found my first husband, we got married, I saw a lot of the red flags and I kind of knew, and like you were saying, when we set ourselves up to show our children a better way, they learn that better way. I hadn't learned a better way. I just knew yelling and toxicity and fighting and high expectations and all of this stuff. And so we started fighting a lot. And my child told my mother, who was babysitting him at the time, that he heard mommy and daddy fighting and mommy was going to call the cops. He said tops because he was a toddler, but he knew what he was saying, because I don't know if y'all know about Paw Patrol, but Chase is a cop on there. So he knew what a cop was. And he
Yes.
told my mom she's going to call Chase, like she's going to call the cops. And that was the moment for me that was like, okay. My mother, who allowed me to live a childhood with nothing but fighting and toxicity and anger and bitterness, is now judging me because my child is hearing the same thing. This stops here. And I remembered what I had on. I remember the afternoon perfectly. I remember how I felt. And that was the moment where it was like, if I can't find my voice for myself, I will daggone sure find it for him. And I did. And I have been using it, even if not always fully regulated, since then. I have tried.
That's
What was that struggle like, going from someone that was suppressing their voice, being caged, to someone that's, boom, here I am, uncaged. I'm going to give you my thoughts. I'm going to give you my opinions. You may not like it, but here they are.
Lonely for a little bit. um,
the boyfriend was
People
like,
don't like it. Yeah, everybody around me is like, "Whoa, what are you doing? Like, this isn't what you've always done." My ex-husband, obviously, because he had really benefited from my quiet for a number of years. And I will say 100 times over, I was not innocent in the demise of our marriage at all. I own what I did. I own that I was not the perfect wife, but he benefited from me being silent and small and catering to what he wanted and what he needed. And then when I was like, "Yeah, I'm done. We're not doing this anymore," he didn't benefit from it anymore, and it made him mad. So I mean, it did. It fractured some friendships. It made some people pretty angry. I was no contact with my mom for a couple of years, on and off, because of it. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was difficult. And now, having lost her in October, we were back to a semblance of contact. And of course, I became her point of contact when she went on hospice. But it was difficult because now I'm this new person that's saying how I feel, but now I'm watching her, pass away, still having not accepted that it's okay for me to have found my voice. What I find is a lot of people who've benefited from you being silent will get really, really angry, but then also those people that now you're being loud, that don't want to take the self-reflection and accountability, get extra mad because then
Mm,
you're holding a mirror up to them and they don't really like that.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah, we spoke about that maybe about a month ago on one of the podcasts about, you have this tribe who's around you when you're that 1.0 version of yourself and you start moving out of that and people get uncomfortable because they like what they were used to, even if it was toxic or, it's predictable. And then you
yeah.
start saying, no, I'm moving in another direction. And you start weeding people out or they start showing their true colors. I love what you said about, hey, you just got to the point where you knew that you couldn't remain that way. And one thing, John and I say to one another is that the first person you got to convince when there needs to be a change is you. Like you have to convince
Yes.
yourself you're worth it. And it is a struggle with yourself at first. So it sounds like, man, you just got down to business that it's going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be a little messy. It's going to be loud. I'm going to be uncaged. They can't be put back in the cage and don't want to be in the cage. And so y'all got to deal with it. But great story there. Great story. Um, I got a question about we always like to talk about, hey, we've all lived an experience. We've got 10 or 12 years in with either co-parenting or, navigating post-breakup life. What do you tell women who are on the front end of that thing? You get that call from them and they're like, I don't know what to do. I know I got to change. I can't stay here. What do you tell them their first moves need to be?
Um well, typically from a strategic standpoint, it's starting to get, your ducks in a row, starting to look at your finances, things like that. But from a just preparing their body, their system for it, it's start your healing now. Do not
Mm,
wait to heal until the papers are signed. You've been in front of a judge, the custody schedule starts. Start the healing work now and do that by taking ownership for what you did. And there are a lot of people, and I won't even just say women, there are a lot of people who don't want to hear that because they're like, I didn't
mhm,
do anything. He did it. She did it. No, 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 no. Own whatever part of it you did. I don't care
mhm,
what they did. I don't care. I mean, obviously, domestic violence free. I will not, that's a whole nother bombshell, but I don't care if they cheated. I don't care if they were a slob. I don't care I care what you did. And I care what you're doing moving forward. So starting the healing right out of the gate. And anytime I talk to anybody about healing, I tell them, do not write your finish line as healed, because if you do, you'll never get there. There is no such thing as healed. There will always be room for healing of some sort. Because even with an actual wound, it's never fully, you always have a scar. Even if you have a, top level plastic surgeon, you always have some semblance of a scar. You can tell it was once there. So you're never
mhm.
fully healed. So take that off the table, but start your healing process early. What if that's getting back to the gym, if that's writing, if that's hanging out with your friends, if that's meditation, I don't care what it is, but start it early because a lot of people put self-care and healing on the back burner until some of this other stuff gets taken care of, but it can make all of that other strategic stuff much more difficult if you're tackling it from a place of toxicity, a place of fear, shame, guilt, anger. It makes all of those other strategic pieces 100 times harder for you.
Wow. Yeah. Absolutely was. We say a lot of the same things there. We talk about accountability. Myself, I like to talk about extreme accountability. Like I can go back and I can trace to this point where I make this decision. So it doesn't matter about any of the decisions that occurred after that, whether they were hers or mine. This initial point right here was mine, and I have to own that. And then I have to own everything after that. And we also talk about you're always healing. Like there is
Yes.
no finish line to that. One of the great things I like to say is like people are like, "Oh, you're a grown man." I'm not a grown man. I'm a growing man, and that's that
Yes.
healing process. That's that growing process that never ends. That you're always chasing, knowing that you're never going to get there, but you continue to chase because that's the joy of life.
Yes.
We're about 34 minutes or so in. I don't know what you were looking for time wise. I know B. I call him B. Kelly has at least one more question for you. I'm for sure.
I got a
So
few more minutes. We're good.
okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in the co-parenting stuff. I think we speak to, our podcast speaks to a lot of guys who are on the front end of a breakup. We tell them, hey, we're guys on a journey just like you. We just have a little bit more time in. My kids are older, so it in my situations are more aged. There's still flare-ups, but that blending and co-parenting is still a thing. as kids get older, it's different when they're small, and then when they're teens, like you have, it's different, and then when they're adults, it's very different. So, can you speak to
Absolutely.
those co-parents out there who are trying to manage themselves, keep their kids out of the storm, and then have this relationship that's getting healthier with the ex for the benefit of the child? Can you speak to some techniques or some things that could help that along?
Communication is top level. Like, communicate how you're feeling early and often. And I know that there are lots of people who do not like to communicate and who are not good at communication. But that is because they're setting this expectation that communication has to be this, like, strategically planned, well thought out, sit down across from each other at the table and use big words. It doesn't have to be like that. You can literally write a letter back and forth to each other, get a notebook and start taking notes in it, things like that. But communicate how you're feeling early and often. Because I know one thing that happens with co parenting dynamics, and especially when you're trying to build a healthy relationship on top of an unhealthy co parenting dynamic, you
Mhm.
really get in the woods with bitterness and resentment very, very early because we all have different ideas of parenting. I don't parent my child the way that my husband parents his children. I wouldn't parent them the way he wouldn't parent mine I mean, it's all over the place. And we really start building that level of resentment if you don't share how you're feeling. Also, setting role expectations is incredibly important for
Mm,
everyone
big.
involved. Yeah. Stepmom, stepdad, they should not be the owner of the rodeo. They should be like the rodeo, and people are gonna be mad I'm gonna say this, but they should be the rodeo clown, like the one there for entertainment and like levity. They should not be there to run the show. They just shouldn't. And I can tell you guys are laughing, I know, but I can tell you why. I can tell you why. My husband's attorney said because my husband and his co-parent could not email each other, they couldn't communicate at all. It was
Mhm.
always pot shots were being taken, name calling, all these things. And he was like, "You start handling it." And I'm like, "You mean me?" And he was like, "Yes, the email needs to come from you and CC him to her." And I was like, "You have lost your mind." Like, if I got an email from my ex-husband's wife, what? I don't want to do this. And he was like, "I think it would really help because then it would keep everybody in line with what the children need." And I'm like, "You're a
Mm.
nutcase. Like, no." And he's like, "Well, I mean, I'm your attorney." And I was still in that naive phase where I thought what the attorney said goes. And I should have known better and just been like, "No, I'm 10 toes down, not doing this," because it was terrible. It was the most stress I've ever been under. I checked my email constantly. I inflamed her. She inflamed me. If there was one thing, I'm not apologizing to her for anything, but if there was one thing that I could be like, "Girl, I feel you. Those emails, I shouldn't have been doing that. But here's why I did it." Like, but it was terrible. I was out of my role. I was out of my league. I shouldn't have been doing that. So setting those role expectations of stepmom, stepdad, they're there as kind of like an adjunct. They're not there to
Mhm.
take over everything because the resentment is going to build if that happens because you're parenting kids you didn't make. You're in the middle of if it's a high conflict co-parenting situation. And if those roles are explained early and they're not agreed upon, then you can kind of cut ties, move away, separate, whatever the case may be, before things are really, really thick, before you're in the thick of it. Kids know each other, kids know this person, that type of thing. So role expectations are huge in communication.
Communicate. Hey, you're speaking a language simple but not easy to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, those expectations, setting those expectations from the jump too. And then I would assume that you need to remain slightly flexible within those role expectations, right? Like
Yeah.
year 1 role expectations are not the same as year 10 role expectations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the whole process is very fluid. It's just like you were speaking to a minute ago where it's different when they're kids, teenagers versus adults. It's the same as parenting. Parenting a toddler is way different than parenting a teenager. It is hard in these streets with teenagers. So, can you imagine the blended aspect
Yeah.
of teenagers? You're gonna have to be fluid with some of the things that go on, and you're also going to have to learn silence sometimes, which is very hard for me. If I see
Mm.
something, I say something, and I stand on principle to a fault sometimes. But sometimes, just if if it's not going to matter in 10 minutes, 10 months, or 10 years, shut up. Just don't say anything about it, because it's not worth it to do that, because you're going to blow, a hornet's nest for something that's not going to matter in just a little bit. So it's kind of picking those battles too.
Right, right. Agreed. I definitely agree. Yeah, you have to know when to fight and, like you said, when to be silent. And
Yeah,
that silent part is a struggle for many of us.
it
Because
is.
it's a lot of ego repression, and that's a difficult thing to do.
It is.
Um,
And for me, it's my face. My husband tells me all the time, if your mouth doesn't say it, your face is going to. So we'll be like in a store and he'll like elbow me and be like, fix your face. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good now. So I had to really work on, one of the kids is doing something and I'm over there, with this like mean mugging face, and just walk away. And also another thing is space. Like not
mm,
always having to be blended and together all the time. Like
interesting.
if the stepkids are over and you want to go on a girls' night or a guys' trip or whatever, go do it. Go do it. It's
Mhm,
okay. It's okay to give a little bit of space and not have to be there for everything. And that, especially for a type A personality, is really difficult because you're afraid of what's going to happen, especially in a high conflict situation while you're gone.
mhm,
But there are times where you being there, you're going to actually make it worse. So just go get yourself some space, clear your head, do your self care, whatever it is, because you're going to come back a little more refilled than what you were before you left.
mm,
Or that reminds me of, are you familiar with Ron Deal? He's a
Mm-mm.
pastor that does a lot of stuff with blended families, and one thing he says that the word picture he uses is that a blended family needs to work like a crock pot, low heat and a lot of time, and then everything in there will cook at its proper time
I
and
love
proper
that.
temperatures. That space is really key. So yeah,
I
thanks for putting.
love that.
Yeah.
Love that. I tell some of my co-parenting and stepmoms that we all have this picture perfect idea of what our blended family is going to look like. And it kind of looks a little bit like that picture frame that you pick up from the store. And it's just this perfectly posed picture. So I tell some of my stepmoms to go get one of the 3 frames. So you have, one side by side, and you put, a perfect-ish one there, then put 2 imperfect ones on the side, because that's what's going to hang
Mhm.
in your house. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to look like a nuclear family. It can look however you want it to, that allows for peace and togetherness in your household.
mm. That's it right there. Yeah, it's what's perfect for you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have one more question for you, and that centers on what is one thing that you want your children to be able to take from your life experiences?
Never make yourself small.
Mm. That's
That's
it.
that's
Simple,
it.
simple, and so
That's it.
powerful. I love
Never
that.
make yourself
Yes.
small.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Does that look a certain way for your son? So when you're looking at your son, is that what does that look like for him for you?
He's just like me, so that's a scary answer to give you. Never. So there are certain people in his life. There are certain people who are can be very small-minded, very close-minded to only what they've grown up around, and anything that's different is automatically bad, is automatically something you shouldn't align yourself with. You should just never kind of step outside of a box or a cage. And for him, I never want him to be silenced for the things that he wants. Stand up for what you want, believe in what you want, dress the way you want. As long as you're a kind person, a
Mm,
compassionate human, it does not matter what you wear, what you listen to, where you go to college. It does not, those things don't matter. You can go back to college, you can change your outfit, you can change your hair, you can change your friend group. But I don't want you to silence yourself to make someone else happy. And he's just like me, so he's not gonna do that.
He's gonna
He doesn't do that.
see it on his face.
see on his face.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. There's a song that says you're not built for backing down. You're stubborn, you get it from your mom, and you're not built for backing down, and that is 100% him. He is not built for backing down, and I hope he never does. I hope my
Mm,
stepchildren never do. Just if you have to make yourself small in order to be relevant or worthy to another human, they're not for you. That person is not
mhm.
for you.
That's it right there. I mean, you cannot say it any better than that, right? And
Yes.
I love the simplicity but the powerfulness in what you said there. Just speak up and then do your own thing. Be authentically who you are at all phases of life. And as long as you're kind, that's all that really matters. That's it
Yes.
right there.
That's it.
I am raising kind humans. I don't care what they do otherwise. Just be kind because it's
That's it.
free and it's easy.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your authenticity, your openness,
Yes.
your story, sharing your story with us, and just simply joining us here on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. It's been amazing. B, you have anything?
No, just hey, if you have any,
Yeah.
where can people find you on the socials, and then your book, where they can find that, or anything you have, any projects you have upcoming. Let the
Yeah,
audience.
absolutely. They can find me at Dr. Court_Ever After Press. That's my Instagram. Links right over to my website. Super easy to find. You can DM me there. If you want to get my book, Uncaged, it's on Amazon. I also have a link on it on my Instagram. I have another book coming out in the fall. It's Like My Mother Was. It's a complicated story of finding grace through grief with my
Mm.
mom's hospice journey. And then I do have a really cool project I'm working on right now. It's called the Stepmom Chronicles. So I am working on anonymous stories from stepmoms and putting it into a compilation and publishing it so that other stepmoms who are coming behind us can read it and not feel so alone and like they're walking a tightrope with sharks underneath of them. So
There you
if you're
go.
interested more about that's on my Instagram too.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, we'll make sure to link all those things when we start posting our content. Once again, thank you so much. And for the Better Baby Daddy podcast, I'm John,
Kelly.
and that was the wonderful Dr. Court.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace. Bye bye.